The Great Central Railway in Leicestershire stretches 8 miles from Leicester North to Loughborough Central. This weekend, their passengers are being transported back to the 1940s for the railway's Wartime Weekend, an annual event where visitors dress up in period costume, ride the rails and experience a time when heritage steam was in its heyday.
This is one of our most popular events at the GCR. Railways played a massive part in the war and we're playing our part to recreate that so people can appreciate what wartime Britain would have been like.
During World War II, the railways were a lifeline for both the public and the military. These very locomotives would move vital equipment, munitions, troops and food supplies around the country. Today, they'll be expected to carry passengers between sites. And with up to 3,000 people expected, Duty Traffic Manager Scott Manley will need to treat his timetabling like a military operation.
We'll claw the time back. We've had to strengthen our trains to 9 coaches, the maximum we can run here, and they will be full. Real intense timetable. We operate under a large team of volunteers who've got such a passion for steam railways. There's equally as many people who are into wartime reenactment, and they come down and they share their hobby with ours, and it's a nice mix. Railways and 1940s go well together. It was part of the golden age of steam.
Scott's assignment is to transport passengers between the railway's 4 stations, each transformed for the day into a different military camp, with reenactors creating a hands-on experience. At Rothley Station, the German army are consolidating their camp.
You need both protagonists in a battle to be able to portray, what really went on. I personally think the uniforms are better. It is interesting to note the differences between the two sides.
For Sturmbannführer Steve, like many here today, it's a hobby that's slowly become an addiction.
You start to become a collector of certain bits of memorabilia and then it becomes very, very difficult to stop. It's as much fun as you can have with your clothes on, really. We do invest a lot of money in the uniforms, trying to make them look right. Even down to sitting down eating your rations, you want the public walking past to see that you are using period utensils. It is our best attempt at a living history sort of display, really.
In one go, they got to empty the ram.
Meanwhile, down in Quorn and Woodhouse Station, the Americans are on patrol. During the war, this station was home to the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the US Army. 2,000 troops stored their equipment right here in the yard and spent 2.5 months preparing for their D-Day landing in Normandy.
They were based in Quorn, which is just down the road, and that was their pre-D-Day home, and this was all their training area and everything, and that's the unit that we represent as a group.
We do get dressed in green and we do pretend to be other people, but when you actually get to speak to genuine people who remember it and they say, oh, I remember this and I remember that, and they tell you the stories that are linked to when they were youngsters and the Yanks were here. They told stories of being given stockings and chocolate by the Yanks and things like that, and that really makes it so real about what we do. It just makes you feel that you're doing something worthwhile.
I grew up around this railway. I've always had an attraction and appeal to it, and to be part of an event like this is fantastic. I never thought that I would be involved with organising this type of event. It's a real honour and a privilege.
The British public were urged against leisure travel during the war, as the railways were needed for transporting troops and equipment. But today, civilians will be arriving in their thousands. And as their most profitable event of the year, the railway will once again be reliant on the might of their engines to pull it off. At the Great Central Railway in Leicestershire, Rothley Station has been turned into a German-occupied village in France, and it's about to experience an Allied invasion. 2,500 people have paid to travel on the railway today, and they are now packed into their line-side seats ready to watch the spectacle unfold.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good Abend, meine Damen, meine Herren. Welcome to Rothley Station. What we have in front of you here is a small railway station, close to the Normandy coastline, occupied by German troops in transit.
As the reenactors prepare for combat, anticipation is in the air. Over 18,000 reenactors stage battles like this around the UK. And although today they're only firing blanks, the troops still need to be on high alert.
You've got to be serious doing the battles. They're fun, they're entertainment for the public, but for the people doing it, we are playing with weapons and explosives. So you've got to have the safety and the skill behind it.
The battle, choreographed for today's spectators, is entirely fictional. But for those on the ground, it might not always feel that way.
It does give you an impression of what it must have been like to be under fire, and certainly you would imagine yourself sometimes to be more courageous than you actually are. Sometimes I find myself cowering behind some other people, you know, because I am genuinely frightened, even though I know that hopefully I'm not going to come to any harm.
The costumes, weapons and vehicles might be authentic, but today's mock battle is allowed some artistic license. It turns out, in this parallel universe here in Rothley, that it's the Nazis who carry the day.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the 3 whistles have gone. The battle is now over. Hands up who bet the Americans to win. Thank you very much.
A fair few comrades have fallen in combat, if only temporarily.
I didn't survive personally. Trying to escape from the Americans, I managed to knock my hat off and pull the insignia off on the netting as well. But as you can see, it's all been repaired, so no harm done.
As much fun as the gunfire and pyrotechnics might be, the reenactors know that the real purpose of today's event is to keep alive the memory of those who gave their lives during the war.
Between coming back from the battle and just now, we've had a lady pushed up to us in a wheelchair, randomly. She's a resident of Quorn, she's just over 90, and she's just sat there and spent half an hour telling us about her memories of the 505th in Quorn. And it's things like that. That's why we do it.
They go hand in hand, don't they? They're the heritage side. We're very, very old. We're over 100 years old ourselves. And in between that, the war happened. So try to recreate how we are. It's living the experience, relive it, recreate it. And that's what we're here for, basically. Keeping it all in everyone's minds very fresh.
As the tourists troop off home and the soldiers change back into their civvies, there's no denying that the whole day has been a fitting tribute. Not only to the troops on the front line, but also to the railways, who once again today have kept everything moving. For operations manager Scott, who's just waved off his last loco, it's time to put his feet up.
It's been a good day. Successful, tiring, but yeah, really worthwhile for doing.